Okay, we're back on the 2003 Nissan Altima. I'm going to be replacing the exhaust manifold. So I did a video on O2 sensor relocation, and one of the things I didn't mention in that video is that the check engine light has been coming on, and I didn't mention that this gasket, the original one, I think it's failed, and I think I have an exhaust leak, pretty sure. When I hooked up the downpipe, I could move it, even though I tightened it up as much as possible. So I think that gasket crushed down, and I'm getting too much O2 in too much oxygen in the upstream sensor. So hopefully we're going to replace this header here, and that'll get rid of that problem in the gasket. So here's the header I'm putting in. It's just an eBay header, and it came with the header wrap, so we're going to wrap the header. I think wrapping the header is going to be a good thing to do, because I want to keep the heat, as much heat in the exhaust system, to get down to the catalytic converter. Since I don't have the pre-cat anymore, I want to make sure we get as much heat out of that collector and down through the downpipe. The downpipe has a heat shield on it, and I think that's there to try to keep the heat in, so it'll help that catalytic converter, the main cat, to activate. It needs heat to get the chemical reaction started. Alright, so that's what we're going to do. One other thing I did, I've had this alternator off a few times when I did when I removed the pre-cat, and also I replaced the alternator. I did a little mod. I'll have a picture in here of the mod I did to a bracket on this little fuse box. It's just something that saves a little time. I notched out the bracket so that when you need to take the alternator off, there's a bolt down there on the bottom. You just see it down there underneath that hose. It's a big long bolt, and if you notch out the bracket on this fuse box, then you don't have to take the fuse box off. Normally there's a couple bolts that hold this on, and then you take that out to get the alternator bolt out. But if you notch that bracket, then next time if you ever have to go in there, that bolt will just come straight out and it goes through the bracket, and that just saves a little time in the future if you're planning on owning one of these cars for a while, and it's just something you can do. Anyway, okay, here we go. Okay, here's that bracket mod I was talking about. So I don't know if you can see the notch, but first thing you want to do is take the cover off the fuse box, and that will uncover a button here, right there. You push that button in, and you can lift the fuse box up. So I've got it up, and the notch is right there, and there's the bolt I'm taking out. So should be able to just take that bolt and slide it through that hole, and there it goes. Because normally that bolt will come out, and guess what happens? It hits right, that bolt will hit right there. You see all that metal I took out? It'll come out and it'll stop, and then you can't get the alternator out. So then you got to take this stupid bracket off. So that's just something I did. If you have a cut-off tool or die grinder. Yep. Okay, alternator's out. Got a better shot of that bracket there. See the notch? It's kind of a radius, sort of a big notch. And there's the button you push. Alternator's out. I'm going to leave this bracket on here. Should be able to work around that. The main reason to take the alternator out is there's a lower bolt. Now there's a guy on YouTube says you can do it without taking the alternator out, but it just makes it a lot easier to access this bolt right here, and I didn't want to fight that alternator. If you ever have to do your water pump, it's right there. Okay. Okay, I got the old exhaust manifold off. There it is. So one of the things I did when I took it off is I left this bracket on that I'm going to need to reuse right here. And I didn't want to fight with this under the car. I mean, this thing's been hot and rusted, so I've got a torch. If I can't get that off, it's a lot easier to heat this up, you know, outside the vehicle. So just a little FYI. I just thought that, you know, it's a lot easier to take the bolt out of the aluminum block than it is out of the rusted manifold. So that's how I did it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to leave the original gasket on, and I'm going to trial fit this thing before I put the proper gaskets in. Somebody else bought one of these headers and it didn't fit. He had an 05 Altima, and he said it was, well, he had pictures of it. It didn't fit at all, but I'm hoping this will work. You got a flex pipe on your down tube, so yeah, you got a flex pipe down there, so that thing, you know, it moves around. So I'm hoping that this should work. Okay, wish me luck. Okay, I've got the header temporarily installed, mocked up. It looks like it's going to fit. The angle's not perfect down on the downpipe, but it's looking pretty good down there so far. And that, like I say, that downpipe has a, it's flexible. It's got a flex piece in it. So one thing I did was, or had to do, was on this primary tube, number 1 cylinder, the flange on the nut was hitting on the primary tube. It's too, you know, it's too close to the nut flange, so I had to grind it down. So I have a bench grinder here at the shop. So what I did was I took that, where is it? I'm trying to get it in the video. Stand by. Technical difficulties. Okay, so what I did was I took that long alternator bolt, the one that, you know, it's hard to take out, and just thread it on there, and then just spin this on the bench grinder. And if you don't have a bench grinder, you can just go to the, you know, auto parts store and buy a regular nut and maybe some flat washers if you have an issue with it. It's just, so far it's just the one. Yeah, that should be the only one that's even close. Okay, so yeah, everything looks like it's going to work. So the next step is I'm going to take it off and wrap the header, and then we'll put the proper gaskets in and hopefully be done. The nice thing about this setup is, okay, I guess I should have explained a little better. The code I was getting is for, you know, Catalytic inefficiency code, which is what I originally had. But I did a drive test with my scan tool, and it appears it's getting it's running lean on the first sensor. So I'm pretty sure that that gasket or the manifold was allowing extra oxygen in, so the computer thinks the engine is running lean when really it's just got an exhaust leak. So if this doesn't work, you know, if I still have that code, what I can do is I have some options now, because I have 2 more bungs. So let's just say that that donut gasket down there leaks on this header and I just can't fix it. Well, I have 2 options. I can go with this lower bung, put my upstream O2 sensor one here, and that's right in the collector, so that's going to get, it's going to get oxygen readings for all 4 cylinders. So that would be the ideal spot if I can't make my O2 sensor relocation mod work. Let's just say that I got a pinhole leak when I welded the bung in. So I could move the sensor to here and it will fit, you know, because that's originally where it, you know, came out at. If that doesn't work, I can go up here. And then I've got a single primary tube, which is not going to, it's not going to provide the computer with a real realistic data of what the engine's doing, because it's only looking at the number 3 cylinder. But you know, if I have a problem, this would be the last case scenario, because then the only place it could leak is you know, here or at the bung. You know, that would eliminate, you know, because they say it just takes a tiny little pinhole leak, and those sensors are extremely precise. So that gives me 2 more options, but I'm hoping that I can use my setup, because I like the way it is. I like the fact that I've got the sensors close together, one on each side of the catalytic converter. That's the way it should be. Okay, so like I say, we're going to pull this off, we're going to wrap it, new gaskets, and throw this thing together, and hopefully it's going to run like a champ. No codes. Okay, so I'm going to have to do a small modification here on this bracket. So I lifted that up and I marked approximately where that hole is on the header, the threaded hole, with a Sharpie. I have to re-drill a hole. And what I'm going to do is this bracket is slotted on the block side, so you've got some adjustment. So I'm going to mark the side of the bracket over here. I'm going to get this bracket centered on that slot, mark the side of the bracket here, and then I can you know, intersect the 2 points, drill the hole, and then it should work, you know, because I've got that a little bit of adjustment. And the other thing is I broke the that bolt that was in the original manifold. It broke off, of course. So I got to go to the parts store and get another one of those. Okay. But so far it's looking pretty good. Not bad. Okay. A little update here. I think I had that bracket on upside down. It has an arrow on it, so I put the arrow up. And so what I did was, you can see I put a little Sharpie line inside there. And there's a line on the bracket on the header where I think the center of the bolt hole is. So it kind of goes at this weird angle, but the angle basically is going to follow the same angle as this flange. So that's kind of what I tried to draw with the Sharpie. Now I'm going to take the bracket off, and I'm going to take my digital calipers, and I'm going to measure how far up that bolt hole is and try to get it fairly close. And I'll drill the hole a little bit on the big side, and then I'll go to the hardware store, get the bolt and probably some washers, and I may have to grind a flat spot in that washer. We'll just have to see. Okay, so that's how I'm doing it. I don't know if this is right, but here we go. Okay, so looks like that bracket is going to work just fine. Had to re-drill that hole. You can see there's the original hole, just went up. I went up 344 thousandths of an inch, and I got that thing perfect. I lucked out. Anyway, had to go buy a new bolt. And the hardware's not tight here, but I just put everything in to make sure it's going to fit. It all looks good so far. Something else I discovered. Okay, I mentioned earlier that I had to grind the factory nut. I didn't realize, I knew this kit had some hardware, but it comes with the manifold studs. I thought, when I saw the hardware, I thought it was the downpipe hardware. I didn't realize there's 4 studs, and these studs have a smaller flange nut than the factory. So yeah, that probably would have worked here. You know, I could have just swapped that out. But anyway, so that's good. It's good to have the hardware. So Now I'm going to pull the header back off, change out the gaskets and wrap the header and put it back on. And I think when I wrap this, I'm going to leave the bungs exposed. Like I say, if I have to move the sensor, I want those exposed. I put blue Loctite on there. Shouldn't be a problem getting them out though. And I'm probably not going to wrap the each primary tube. I'm mainly just going to wrap. I'll probably start right here. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Just wrap the bundle here, go around below the bung, and then wrap it all the way down through the collector. Okay, so I'll get that wrapped and we'll see how it looks. Alright, here we go. Okay, I got the header all wrapped. Not going to win any awards for a beauty contest, but I did what I best I could do with what I had. It comes with stainless steel zip ties, cable ties, and then I put a couple hose clamps on. So if those don't work, I'll get some more hose clamps. It's not pretty, but it's going to do what I want it to do. And then went ahead and cleaned up the exhaust ports, the flange. Just used a brass bristle brush and some simple green. Okay. Okay, we're all back together. The engine's cold. So I've got the scan tool hooked up and I've got my heat gun, and I'm going to go underneath and get this thing warmed up, and we'll check the temperature on the cat, and then hopefully we'll get a good results on the O2 sensors. Okay. It's about 140, 130, 140. 120 on the back. Okay, so the cat is about 300 degrees on the input side, O2 sensor 1. I think it's a little bit on the cold side. I may have to wrap some more exhaust. And this is O2 sensor bank 1 sensor 2, the downstream. It's only 290 and it's not moving at all. Like to see that up around 800 millivolts, but it doesn't move. The engine's fully warmed up pretty much. So yeah, still not quite happy. Trying to run this tool here. Okay, so I can't graph them both at the same time, but it looks like O2 sensor 1's working pretty well, although it's dropping pretty low at that 40 millivolts. I'd like to see it do 100 to 800. Yeah, I don't know. That's 2,500 RPMs there. Yeah, I may have to, like I say, I may have to try to wrap that header. She's not moving off of 290. Huh. Shoot. That header or cap might just be too cold. It's not doing its... Yeah, it might just be too cold. It's not removing the oxygen. But I think I got rid of the exhaust leak. Yeah, okay.